Welcome to Transformation with Martine. Conquer everything and compromise nothing. This show brings you real, raw, and vulnerable conversations. If you have never liked small talk and have been on a personal growth journey for a long time, stay tuned as Martine and her guests share empowering stories. Now is the time to own your past and look toward your future with hope. Believe in your dreams, and all that you want to achieve is possible. Transformation Coach Martine helps you accept and love you for you. It's time to listen to your heart and tap into your unlimited potential. You have the answers you need inside. Sometimes you just need the right guide to help allow transformation to happen. Transformation with Martine starts now.
Welcome everyone to Transformation with Martine. This is where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. And happy Friday. And this is actually a more happy Friday than me for usual. I'm an entrepreneur, so I make my own schedule. So I'm not like how I used to be in the corporate world, like, oh, thank God it's Friday. But I love Fridays anyway. It just doesn't matter. There's an energy about Fridays. You're going into a weekend, and but it's really fun for me today because I've had a month off. So it's nice just to come back and just realize how much I love it, and just the appreciation of being here and getting to interview people like my guest today that, man, we are overcomers, right? We have overcome a lot, her and I both, and so many of my guests as well. And this show is about hope and the resilience of the human spirit. And I'm so happy to be able to bring people, to leave all of you, the audience, with hope. So without further ado, I want to welcome my guest today. And she is someone who's special because we've known each other and we've been in the same communities for years. And we just recently connected again. So I'm just happy to have her here and to share her story. Welcome, Lisbeth.
Thanks, Martine. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes. What is better than transformation and breakthroughs, and it makes me emotional. There really isn't anything better than that. And man, some of the things that we go through in this life, it isn't easy. But there was a song that I was listening to this morning, and it's like, it doesn't always feel good, but we have to go through these things to get where we are. We have to, because if everything was just perfect, we wouldn't even understand, or be grateful, for this. Man. So what brought you into the world originally, and what is bringing you into your whole new passion and purpose?
Yeah. So thanks again, Martine, for having me here. And you're a great show.
Absolutely.
I'm just gonna take a moment. So what really brought me, when you asked the question, what brought me into the world, is I have always been drawn to being an uplifter, a helper, a supporter. And it's, we're talking about, I heard that song, and like this morning I was thinking of, when things are easy, then you're not really like expanding or growing. And so when we do the hard things, right, and we allow ourselves the discomfort to be in the discomfort, there's always so much in that we could never imagine, because we just have such a practiced pattern and vibration of maybe ignoring, right? And so I years ago, and not until recently did I understand why things were happening the way they were. I had been on a spiritual journey and become an avid meditator and really committed to deep self-inquiry. And my baseline is I'm a very happy-go-lucky. People say you have the best energy. Talking to you is like having a breath of fresh air. That's just my baseline. And so I feel I'm lucky in that way. However, and I was gifted, I call it the divine disruptor, this rare medical condition called cervical dystonia.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, now it all makes sense. Like, I was being groomed so that I could go through 7 years, dark nights of the soul for 7 years, and now come up to share. Even a girl who's been in healthcare for 25 years as a registered nurse and has all the tools. Okay. It's like, it's a process. It's the metamorphosis. It is a transformation. And when we can allow ourselves to take however much time it needs to be in the cocoon, to reflect, and to just be in that learning, well, it's the total transformation. So I'm just here now to use my 25 years as a nurse, use what I know about law of attraction, manifestation, quantum physics, energy to show that even when all the lemons are on your doorstep, all the poop is on the fan, you can still have a both and experience.
You can. Isn't it, interesting? I knew when I was diagnosed with cancer in 2014, like, okay, time to step into your purpose here. Quit saying that, yeah, well, life is pretty good. I do okay as a paralegal, I'm doing fine. And kind of like, it's just kind of like your life is just routine. You do the same thing. And it's like, listen, it's not a bad life, but am I fulfilled? Not really. And that was like when it's like, okay, you got to do something. And then a couple of years ago, I was really triggered by a health coach, and I had to tackle my eating disorder that I had my whole life. And I had gotten to the point where it's not like a binge purge thing that I was doing. It wasn't anything like I was in the depths of an eating disorder, but I still panicked all the time. I still worried, and it's through my head. What I ate every day went through my head like numerous times a day. And then she triggered me to the point where, oh gosh, I have got to do something with it. And I know that was like what you were saying. You were groomed with everything you were doing. And for me, going through cancer and developing a love for my body and what it still can do, and to be able to overcome that, and then beating my eating disorder. And, it's like, I don't think that's ever completely gone either, but it's definitely like, I don't worry all the time. But I got to where it was even a deeper love for me and my body and what she can do when I guess she decided it was time for me to have vitiligo. It wasn't, it was very hard for me. And I mean, almost worse in some ways, which sounds crazy, than cancer. I knew I'd beat cancer, but there's no cure. And yes, there's things you can do so it's not as visible, but it's not going anywhere. Yeah. And I thought, well, and now that it's been 2 years, it's kind of like, okay, it's much better. Phototherapy works, it helps, but it's a deeper appreciation. Like, God, my body still is awesome, even though I have this and I see it. And isn't it funny? Like, probably, like they say something like, you have a car that you want. Once you buy it, it's everywhere. I never saw people with vitiligo. I didn't even know what it was.
Of course.
Until I had a client with it. And then I develop it. And then everywhere I go, I see somebody. Is it the same with cervical dystonia? Do you start seeing people or people come into your path, like, and they have something?
Yes, it's so what you're talking about is basically in the energy world is resonance, right? When we are tapped in to a certain energy or a certain idea, we literally attract those people into our field, literally. And again, so the answer is yes, but just a little like back at that, when you said vitiligo has no cure, there is no cure for cervical dystonia. And so when you get handed that, it's like, okay, this is no messing around. What am I going to do with this? And so I totally lost my train of thought. You were talking about vitiligo. Oh, the dystonia people. So literally out to eat last night at dinner at our favorite watering hole. And we're sitting, it's a pizza place. We're sitting next to this the pizza oven. And so it's like a mirror. You can see literally the woman sitting 3 seats over from me. She had what's called a head trimmer, where her head was going like this. And a head trimmer can be one of the symptoms or manifestations of cervical dystonia. And I was like, honey, that woman, like I send my love to her. I'm certain she has dystonia. And so, yes, it is the thing, right? When you become aware, then those things come into your experience, for a reason, I think.
Yeah. So there's no doubt about it. I remember like going, there's kind of I call it an amusement park, sort of, that's just up the street from us. And it's a big one. And I remember going then, I was very self-conscious and I had a hat on and pretty much covered and and protect myself from the sun, right? Not supposed to be in the sun, especially certain hours for my condition. And I remember seeing a woman, and this was like right in the beginning, and I saw her and I'm like, oh, just compassion. Like I just wanted to say something to her, and and then I'm like, but she's rocking it. I mean, she's not hiding anything. She's not worried at all. It's me. So as my journey has continued over the past, couple of years, it's kind of like, well, it isn't awesome, but it's like, well, I kind of look at it as my own, not only warrior badge, but my own, like, I kind of like animal print. So, hey, I have it on me. Well, it's not on my clothes. It's just on me on certain places. I'm lucky to not have it everywhere, just a few spots. But yeah, it's just like, it's reframing and reframing for people I see too. Like, hey, she's going to rock this too, Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned like being a nurse, and that probably at least you have the education, so that helps, but it probably doesn't help with the emotions. It's like, why
Interesting that you
me?
bring that
No,
up,
not me.
It's so interesting that you bring that up because, I, being a nurse for 25 years, I had never heard of this disorder.
Right.
Never. And then when I found out, after I came out of the dystonia closet, that it can take up to 7 years for a person to be properly diagnosed, I was like, I have to say something. Like, this is not happening on my watch. And I was lucky. Like, I got diagnosed very quickly, but not everybody, no two people present the same, which is part of the complexity of this. And some people, so dystonia, just for educational purposes, dystonia is a movement disorder, which means it's also a neurological disorder. And there are many different manifestations or ways that dystonia can show up. The way that mine shows up is in my head, neck, and shoulders, and it's called cervical dystonia, cervical meaning the neck. And so for a period of time, my head was completely sideways, tilted to the left, and my neck was rotated to the right. I looked like a zombie. Some people, you can't tell that they have cervical dystonia. And so, and I would like to share some of the comments that people that have cervical dystonia want the world to know, because as you mentioned, it's the emotional, mental, psychological aspects of this condition that are so debilitating and isolating.
Yes.
Yeah.
I get that with what I have as well. We're going to take a short break and then we'll come back and talk about that. Yes. Okay. So everyone who will be back to talk more about just the emotional components, not only to cervical dystonia, but to just autoimmune, and conditions like even like fibromyalgia. You can't see somebody in pain, but they are. It's something that we need to have more education around, and people need to talk more about it. And I hope that more people share their stories. We'll be right back, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Welcome back, everyone, to Transformation with Martine, where we overcome everything, compromise nothing. And my guest today is Lisbeth Overton, and we are talking about cervical dystonia and overall conditions that come into your life sometime that just kind of, wow, make you rethink a lot of things in life. And put you over on into a course that you really hadn't imagined, right? How does that sound, Elizabeth?
Right. Yeah, it's my coach says something to the effect of we're never the experts in the thing that we really wanted to be the expert in.
Right. Isn't that the truth? Right? These things that come up like, oh, yeah, I really need to teach that because somebody needs this.
Yes. And
Yeah.
before the break, we were talking about this, you asked about the emotional aspect.
Mhm.
And Lord knows in my 25 years of nursing, I have seen people in every actual position, right? And you talk
Mhm.
about being in a vulnerable place. And so to me, there's no more sacred work than being able to meet somebody exactly where they are and just be in integrity with them to reflect back to them their wholeness, right? Their well-being and just guiding them through the dark night of the soul. And I would love to share some contrasting comments from people who actually live with this condition, just to show the depth and the breadth of what it's like, if that's okay.
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay. So in a nutshell, I would say for people to write a list of every task you did in one day, starting with how you got out of bed. Because for us, the strain even that puts on the neck muscles is painful. And we haven't even gone to the bathroom yet. Everything we do in a day requires using our neck muscles. So just after breakfast routine of an hour or so, our neck and body is already exhausted. So I have to go lay flat on the bed to get any relief. The limitations list is so long I can't even begin to write them all here. Everything we used to do is either limited or we cannot do it at all. Showering, walking, eating, dropping things, driving, etc. And those are some of the big things, never mind the smaller tasks. Our bodies are in a constant fight or flight just to get what we can get done every day. I was physically active, a social butterfly, and now stuck in this body that will have none of that. I'm just in survival mode most of the time. That is not being negative because I still stay positive, but this is my daily reality.
Mm-hmm.
So,
We
like
take
all
for
of the
granted.
things that we take for granted, like being able to carry ourselves with 2 feet, being able to brush our hair or speak certain words, we really do take things for granted.
Mhm.
So that's just a little insight, and then a contrasting comment from someone who's had it for a really long time. I've been diagnosed and getting Botox for 16 years now. Botox has helped me so much. I work, drive, and have a full life. What I would like others to know is that we are more than dystonia. Each of us has such special gifts that we bring to the table when we are able to be at our best. I do know, however, how dystonia can get in the way of living your best life when the pain and twisting becomes debilitating. Finding a neurologist who specializes in movement disorders is so important, and one who really cares and takes time with their patients is a key factor too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what I want to just highlight is just like anything else, if you have any condition you can name, right? If 10 people are told they have a certain disorder or a diagnosis, they're all going to have radically different outcomes, first of all, based on what they believe about themselves, their diagnosis, and their well-being. And unfortunately, with cervical dystonia, no two people present the same. So I can share my story and it's going to be different from other people's story. However, there are similarities. And I would say, based on talking to so many people that have this, I feel like the best one that correlates with this emotional thing is the isolation is so intense, Martine, because um again, like if you see me or you know me, I'm just like everything is good and right. Like it doesn't matter what is going on. I choose to focus on what's working. that has worked well for me.
Yeah.
However, some days it's like, I don't want to get out of bed.
Right.
And so what happens is, and I didn't even realize I was doing this until 7 years later, is, and I'm sure you have a similar experience, especially with the vitiligo, where you start to isolate yourself. Your world starts to become very small. All of a sudden you're looking in the mirror and you're like, what who am I and what is going on? You don't even want to do the things that always gave you joy. And then you become depressed. So that is what the world needs to know about this condition. And also, the Dystonia Medical Research Foundation is a fantastic organization that provides resources for people that have dystonia. You can find a provider in your area for providers that focus on this specific disorder. So this is both like, this is what it's like. And it's also, if you've never heard of this, like, and you have things with your head or your neck where you're having these involuntary movements, and they seem so bizarre, you're like, that didn't really just happen. So I'd like to share kind of how it presented for me.
Yes. I was just going to ask you that. Like, how did you become aware? What happened?
So again, like, I've been a nurse for 25 years, and before that I got my degree in sports fitness management. So I'm very well versed in the body and all the things.
Yeah.
And still, so my husband and I are sitting on the couch watching a little boob tube, and out of nowhere, my head goes like this. And I was like, okay, like, what was that? And I didn't, even being a nurse, I was like, that was weird. You know what we do, right? We just, we'll just brush it off or whatever, you know. But then what started happening was, I'm a coffee drinker. And so every morning when I would tip back my head to take my first swig of my yummy homemade French press coffee, my head would, like, the only way I can describe it, and I'm sure anyone that's listening who has cervical dystonia is going, yes, yes, yes. It felt like my neck went off track. Again, like, unless something has happened to you like this, it's hard to imagine, but just imagine you're doing a regular exercise, and you go to move your head back and your head just moves sideways. And I'm like, what? And so again, I'm like, that's weird, but then I just ignored it. And then I was like, you know what? Something is wackadoodle. And I started putting two and two together. And and also a piece of this is, you think you're losing your marbles. You think you're going nuts. And so that's a whole nother layer of complexity. Then you don't want to tell anybody because they're going to think you're wackadoodle.
Right.
So I did go to my doctor, and she referred me to a neurologist who was the appropriate provider for a neurological disorder or a movement disorder. And that's the other thing, there's no test. There's no imaging. There's no blood work. There is physical exam and your personal report of the symptoms. And so right away he said, oh, you have cervical dystonia. And again, what? I've never heard of this.
Okay, so he did know right away.
He knew right away.
Okay.
I am one of the lucky ones. And so I did what everybody else does, Martine. I Googled cervical dystonia, and all that I received, and I'm sure you, cancer, whatever these diagnoses are, you hear that one word and it's everything else is like Charlie Brown. You don't, right? It's like,
gotcha.
Blah, my life is over.
Yeah.
So all I knew from the Google doctor was, you're going to be depressed, anxious, and disabled. And I was like, no, not on my watch.
Right.
This is not happening. And so I went back to my doctor for my first botulinum toxin injection, which is the only FDA approved treatment for this condition. And I'm all excited. And I was like, I'm so excited. I'm going to go to physical therapy. And he literally said, that won't help you. And I'm like, who does that?
Right.
it's kind of like everybody has a story of the counselor at high school that tells you should never apply to Harvard or whatever because it'll never work. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So so I was devastated, and at a future appointment with this particular provider, and he's giving me all these injections of Botox into my neck and my jaw and the back of my head, and I just start crying because I'm so in pain and I'm just so frustrated. Not once does he ask me if I'm okay.
That's awful.
So I'm like, not going to see you again, Mr.
Yeah.
Doctor. So it's a pretty common experience. And so we have to do better. So that's another reason, like, I have to speak out.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I remember a few different times, like just like my mother-in-law, she had ovarian cancer, my former mother-in-law. I'm remarried, but she would, like, the doctor always seemed to tell her these things like on a Friday, like, or take a test and, we won't know anything till Monday, and just scare the bejesus out of her, right before a weekend. And she would just be a wreck. And I just wonder sometimes, like, what are these people thinking? Like, okay, yeah, we need to know what's going on, but there's like a way of compassion. There's a way to say something that's not just so horrible, and not to ask you if you're okay. And, I'm sorry, this is painful. I know it's painful. I mean, what is wrong with you? That somebody should not be in that profession that does not have any compassion for the people that are in their care. There's a lot of good doctors out there, and there's some, I think, that forget.
No, absolutely. And I know we're about to bust out for a break. However,
Yes.
I do want to talk about something that has to do with that when we come back, because it is powerful, helpful.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you back in just a couple minutes. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, and happy Friday again. My guest today is Lisbeth Overton, and we're talking about cervical dystonia and other autoimmune, and compassion and love towards our fellow humans, especially as coaches like we are, and as doctors caring for patients. We need to have that just compassion and love and kindness and caring. And Lisbeth was going to talk about the doctor she was seeing and how she decided to change that, because he definitely was not somebody who was compassionate. So tell us more about that, Lisbeth.
Thanks, Martine. So before the break, I was just sharing how I had a really, it was literally like a blessing and sort of traumatic all at once. I was lucky because I was diagnosed right away. I was referred to the right kind of doctor, a neurologist. However, some days, whoever, nurses, doctors, we're just having a really bad day. And sometimes
I get that too.
We're not mindful. And so I don't ever want to make the impression that I'm poo-pooing anything. However, that he was having a bad day, and it had a negative effect on me. However, I do want to say there's a happy ending, and I am so blessed so I'm in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul area of Minnesota, and I found the best physical medicine and rehab doctor on the planet. And she's so open, and she's at a teaching hospital. And so she actually allowed her resident to record the whole entire session last time I had my Botox injections, so that I could show people, like, this is what you can expect to have an EMG guided Botox injection. And that's electromyography, where there's a little injection that has the actual botulinum solution in the syringe. There's a little tip on the end of it, and that is used to both administer the botulinum toxin and also to pick up the sound waves of your muscles. The neck muscles are very heavily layered and complex, and so an EMG guided injection allows the provider to get, like, if you put the needle in there and there's no noise, then that's not where the medicine needs to go. And the whole reason we use botulinum toxin is to actually weaken the muscle. And so because with cervical dystonia, your muscles are 24/7 contracting and twisting. And while I look fine today, again, in the past, I was tilted like this and my neck was literally twisted like this. And on the imaging, the first and second, so it's called atlas and axis, they were literally rotated on each other. So it was, and it was hard to swallow it sometimes. But anyway, the point is, it's a wonderful thing to ask for of your provider, because it is going to guarantee at least that the botulinum toxin is going to get to the right place. Now, not everybody receives a relief or results from this treatment, which is another thing. It's like, it's not just, oh, you have this, here you go, this is going to help you. So that's another complexity. But I did want to share, Lynn McTaggart is a wonderful researcher who was a journalist for many years. And she basically wanted to go out and write a book about how alternative modalities were a joke, that they didn't work. And what usually happens when we go to prove something, right, is that we're shown what we need to be shown. Long story short, after many, 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 many studies, Lynn McTaggart was able to show through research studies that the power of an intention can absolutely change the outcome of something. And in physics, there's something, you know, the observer effect. Your expectation of something, let's say you're looking at a glass of water, your expectation of how the water is going to behave will actually dictate what the water does. Number one, if you have an intention that you want the water to be filled with love, that will translate into the water. And so in her experiments, she found if you gather 8 people together, you don't even have to be in the same place. It could be like this on Zoom or whatever. You gather 8 people in the same room and you hold an intention, let's say for someone to be healed or to have symptom relief, that it actually has an impact. You can have change based on that one intention. And so what she also teaches is that a provider's words, a provider's statement to their patients is so absolutely important, because most people are looking to their provider for hope, for a treatment plan. And so just, you know, another reminder to all the providers and all the people in the well care world to just remember what we say matters and how we say it matters, you know. And so she has lots of books, but The Power of 8 is really powerful. And I'm actually part of a weekly intention circle where I gather with other healers and we hold intentions for people. And
I love that.
The results of things that are happening, not just for the people that we're intending for, but each of us, because she also found in her research, she calls it getting off of yourself, right? When you get out of your own way.
Oh, 100% agree.
And you just give unconditionally to others as you would like to be given to. It improves your vitality, everything, all of your cells. And so I just want to plant the seed that you know, we're so much more than meets the physical eye.
Oh yeah. Oh, I so agree with you on that. I remember just thinking and praying with one of my clients, you know, because she had she's actually like the first person I saw with vitiligo. And I just remember just going, oh my gosh, you know, I felt so bad because she was just anything she could do to, especially to cover it up on herself, like her face or whatever, makeups. And I remember the same thing when I was diagnosed myself, like, God, I got to find some makeup. I got to cover this up, especially since I'm visible a lot. And we were just like, kind of just like a prayer for each other, a meditation for each other, just this kind of thing. And both of us were just thinking that, yeah, it says it's not curable, but why, you know, and I just look at people like you. I look at, you know, myself, her, and just think like, yeah, it's becoming much less visible. I mean, that vibration is out there. I mean, it's definitely working, the power of our minds, and especially the love for each other. I agree.
So I love that. I mean, there's this prayer, mantra, words of affirmation, however you want to spin it, extremely powerful. And I just want to kind of shift the conversation to the power of focus. And back to the very beginning of the show, when I talked about I was being groomed to be able to navigate this with a lot more grace now than I did in the beginning, because I was learning how to both accept this diagnosis, this thing that was showing up in my body. And the more that I leaned closer to it and said, hey, Sarah, let's get down. Let's like, then the more, the more peace I was granted, the more understanding and the space and the more I was like, you know what, this is not a death sentence. This is like an opportunity. And so we're going to go over just a couple things when we come back, like that you can start doing now. And my coach says, I love this. Like, you should guard the real estate between your ears like a suitcase that has $1 million.
Yeah, that's a very good way to look at it.
Right? And this is the thing, like thoughts become things, you know,
No doubt.
we attract what we are and what we think about. And so just to plant another seed, before Roger Bannister ran a 4-minute mile, people thought it was impossible. And then when he did it, guess what? Other people started breaking a 4-minute mile. Well, why is that? Well, it was evidence that it was possible. And so, you know, we can start practicing this belief. We can start practicing the focus of, well, like, how well could I possibly be? Like, how happy could I possibly be? Like asking the questions. Well, what if I change my perspective just a tiny little bit? You know, from how is this limiting me to what can I do?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
What do I want to do? Like, yes, I have this thing. Okay. And
what?
like, are we going to dance? Some days you got to have a pity party, and that's perfectly cool. Like, you know, sometimes you have to have a pity party, and there's more than one option. That's all, you know.
Yeah, it's both. It's both. Like you said, it's the end. I have this, and some days I really feel like crap and I don't want to get out of bed. And the next day I'll make a different choice. You know, right on. So before we take the break, Elizabeth, where can people find you?
Okay, so LisbethOverton.com for sure. And that is also where people can enroll in my upcoming, my free 5-day cervical dystonia reset challenge. We start Monday.
All right. Okay. We'll be right back, everyone, with our final thoughts and just more good stuff for you. See you in a few. Thank you. Transformation with Martine, where we conquer everything and compromise nothing. My guest today is Lisbeth Overton, and we have been talking about cervical dystonia and the power of the mind and how we can change things. Her condition may not have a cure, but she's managing it beautifully. So I wanted to ask Lisbeth, before we go into final thoughts and all that, do you believe that your dystonia was well, for example, I know that my cancer, colon cancer, it was caused by resentment. I know full well I caused it. I was so resentful of, well, I was resentful. And I'm fully aware of that. And do you think there's anything like for example, maybe you didn't speak up for yourself. Maybe there's something you didn't do that made you take a look here and face some things?
Girl, you know I love this question. Because I am I basically what I teach is energy principles, and we're all energy, and the answer is absolutely. Like absolutely. I know that this whole thing with my neck, the cervical dystonia, is a manifestation of some unresolved energetic, emotional stuff. And, I'm a yoga teacher, meditation teacher, and, we have these energy centers called chakras. And it's interesting that the throat chakra affects, is involved in this cervical dystonia. And so I think that this showed up because I actually have a metaphor for life. When I was 4 years old, I got hit by a car on Christmas Eve. And literally, when I was sort of clinging to this, maybe you could call it victim mentality or just woe is me, is like every time I stick my head out or I jump off and I go all in, I get knocked down, I get run over. And so it's like, okay, well, how, like, what is this about? And so I feel like I had been filtering my truth by not talking about this condition. I mean, I'm a nurse. I love to help people. So I had to go through 7 years of darkness and just be in my cocoon to see what did I allow this to mean to me? And to me, it's the divine disruptor. It turned my entire life literally on its head. Like, pardon the metaphor. I had to modify everything. At one point, I couldn't drive. I had to get disability accommodations to work as a nurse from home. And there were days that I was pissed off and like, why is this happening to me? And now I know it's because I'm supposed to shine a light on this diagnosis to help people, but also I have a miracle consciousness. Here's the thing. Do you know how many micro miracles have to occur for an egg to be fertilized in the womb and for it to be carried to the due date and for it to be delivered and then to be able to sustain a human life on another human's bodily fluids? That is like 1,000 micro miracles, right?
Yeah.
So why do we like I expect miracles. So I live in this world of yes, and yes, I have this thing and it's trying to show me something. And what am I willing to do or know or feel or cherish about this? Like, this is an opportunity. So it doesn't matter if you have cervical dystonia, if you have heart failure, if you have fibromyalgia, if you have Hashimoto's, anything. It is here for a lesson. It is here to teach you what you forgot. That, pure and simple. I think the only reason anyone that's listening to the show or that's upright on the earth plane right now, we all raised our hand. We all raised our hand to come here for specific reasons. And this is just what I believe. The only way we would leave the other side, heaven, whatever you want to call it, to come here is we would have to have amnesia, because if we knew how hard it was going to be, we would have never shown up here.
Absolutely.
Never. So you talk to anybody who has had a near-death experience and they all say, oh, it was so juicy over there and I didn't want to go back, but you had this thing you had to fulfill. So what is the thing you are here to fulfill? And know that if you are meant to do it, which you are, because if you have this soul nudge or this, you keep getting this idea or you keep getting this dream, you keep seeing the word or the book or the person, pay attention to it, because that's the thing. So some of these principles are what I'm teaching in this 5-day cervical dystonia reset challenge. I'm not here to, treat, diagnose, or cure anything. I'm just here to share what's possible. If you can open yourself up to a little bit of faith, a little bit of miracles, a lot of fun, a lot of shenanigans, because you can have cervical dystonia and you can be miserable, or you can have cervical dystonia and you can have as much fun as you could shake a stick at. The choice is totally up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would love to share. I have, I'm a very creative human. And so I have these Oracle cards. It's called the Divine AF deck.
Nice. Yes.
So I would love to share a message with the masses, if that's okay, about what God's source and the universe and all of these amazing light beings want us to know.
Sounds
to
good.
help us on our journey. How's that?
Yes.
Of course. You cannot make this stuff up. It's the time to play card, people.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the message. It's okay for me to be playful. When is the last time you had a creativity date with yourself? Place one on the books today and witness the miracles unfold.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We forget so often to take time just to play. And you know, most of us, especially as entrepreneurs, are running around all the time. It's like, no, wait, it is actually okay to just breathe. And what do I want to do in that breathing? Do I want to dance like we were talking about on the break? Do we want to have a dance party now? Do I want to go for a fun walk? Do I want to just be out in nature and just be in gratitude? I mean, what is it that you want to do? Do it. Yeah, take that time. You deserve it.
I think this is just, again, my personal experience is that once we start adulting, and by that I mean having a job, paying mortgage, having children, whatever, for some reason, we all do this. We put play on the back burner, like way back. And even when our children, if we have children or fur babies, are playing, it's like, oh, I go, no, I don't have time for that. That's only for the kids. And what I have found, the more that I allowed myself and my inner kids to show up and help me be creative and playful, it literally grounds you to the earth and it connects you to the heavens, which means you just become this open portal for divine intelligence.
Absolutely.
And it seems subtle and it seems cheesy and cliche, and I'm telling you, it's the full truth, Ruthie. So just try it.
Absolutely. Be open to it. Just gosh, if you have young kids, play with them, sit down at their level, play some blocks, or dance around, have a Barbie party. Yeah, whatever.
So get a mason jar and put your favorite color glitter in it. And this is like a mindfulness jar. Just watch it. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like a fish tank, even. Peacefulness. Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah. Okay. Elizabeth, this has been awesome. So tell everybody where they can find you one more time.
So LisbethOverton.com is my website. There you will also be able to enroll in the 5-day challenge. We start Monday. And here's the thing. If you have cervical dystonia and you do not have a support system, you got to get you one, because family, while well-meaning, unless you are dealing with this, it's hard to have proper validation. And
Absolutely.
also I have tools there, journals, and these cards that can really uplift you with powerful questions and words of affirmation. And because no matter what you're navigating in life, you are supposed to be having fun, in case you forgot, because of that amnesia.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's go have some fun. Happy Friday. Enjoy your weekend, everyone. And take time for you and some good stuff. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Transformation with Martine, real, raw, and vulnerable conversations. Listen or watch live every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com, as Martine and her guests have deep, meaningful conversations, sharing empowering stories. Step into your passions and lead with your heart. If you are ready to accept and love you for you, visit MartineEmmons.com and start allowing transformation to happen today.